might have seen the headlines, and we've also read your comments. So why are cheques getting more expensive to process these days? Let's take a look behind the scenes at what really goes into processing a cheque. First, if you don't already know, here's what filling a cheque looks like. You get your checkbook, scribble down the name and bank details of your payee, date, and then you drop it off at a cheque deposit box at any bank branch. But what happens after that? It's almost like a bank transfer. Well, except with a lot more work. This is Josephine. She's the team manager for the cheque clearing process. And she's also been working at DBS for the last 39 years.
I think some of you are not born yet.
Did you know in the 80s, staff had to physically process every single cheque? That meant that they saw many kinds of cheques coming through.
And then there you can see that they receive checks for their wedding or even for their newborn baby when they have a celebration. And we also see customers are very happy when they issue a check to a developer because this means that they have bought a new house.
Fun fact, one of the first few known cheques date back to 1659 when goldsmiths wanted a way for customers to make payments with paper instructions instead of having to lug their gold and silver around. Okay, back to the process.
The customer drops the check into the quick check box in a branch. So branch staff will collect it and sort it out. And the courier company will have to collect these checks from our branches all over Singapore. They will have to do this repeatedly for 2 to 3 times a day. If it's bad weather, we are always worried for the courier because it's dangerous, and we also worry that the checks may not reach the processing center. So once the checks reach the processing center, the staff will have to sort the checks, do data entry and go through scanning. And when they do scanning, the system will actually pick up whether the check is valid with the ink that is embedded on the checks. Data entry on the amount and account number for the checks matches with what the bank's record. All these checks will be transmitted to clearinghouse for processing by 6 p.m. And the next day, the receiving bank will have to validate every single check. For example, the date, whether is it valid, any alteration on the check, whether the words and figures are written correctly, and also the signature on the check, whether it matches with the bank's record. This is done by 12 p.m. That means the customer who is banking the check will be able to receive their funds by 2 p.m. on the same day.
Well, that's the process, if all the details you wrote on the check are valid.
Doctor's handwriting is the worst. Checks issued by clinic, right? Always the handwriting is atrocious. We cannot read.
A couple of numbers misplaced here and there, a wrong year, maybe a wrong figure.
Customers, maybe what they do is that they're too happy after they strike 4D, a check from Singapore Pools, and they always forget to write the account number. And if there's a way we can help customers to do the deposit, we will. If not, all these checks will be returned manually via mail.
End to end, the process takes at least 10 staff and about 24 hours.
We used to handle 120,000 checks a day just for deposit. Currently, we only have about 20,000 per day. During COVID, in 2020, our check volume dropped 32% compared to 2019. That was the biggest drop.
So to answer your question, why are checks getting more expensive to process these days? It's simple. That giant scanner, all the manpower, the cost to run this process remains the same, while the overall check volume drops. And how does Josephine feel about all of this?
I think by the time it sunsets, it's time for me to retire too.